Let's get this SEO party started then. Today we're going to be talking about the Google Site Reputation Abuse update that is coming on May the 5th, aka tomorrow. And if you haven't seen this already, there could be some massive updates to the SERPs. Let's first of all talk about what the Site Reputation Abuse update is. But basically what you're going to learn today in this video is what you need to know about the May the 5th update, how high DR sites are manipulating the rankings and why they're potentially pretty much doomed after May the 5th, who's going to get slammed during the latest purge with my prediction, and how sites abusing their site's domain rating might be about to pay. Let's get straight into it. So what is the Site Reputation Abuse update? So Google announced this when they announced the March 5th update, as you can see right here. And one of the things they did, which is quite unusual, is they actually said, we're going to give you 2 months to allow time for site owners to prepare for this change because this new policy will take effect on May the 5th. They usually never do this, but they basically gave like a kind of period where websites could make a few changes who fall under this category. I think it's because they affected, like, you're talking about some of these sites that it's affecting are making like $100 million, right? So I can understand why they're doing it, because the impact of this financially could be massive, right? So first of all, let's talk about what the site reputation abuse is. So this essentially is when third-party pages are published with little or no first-party oversight or involvement, where the purpose is to manipulate SEO rankings by taking advantage of the first-party site ranking signals. Basically, you might have like a DR70, and instead of publishing content on your own site, you're like, hey mate, would you mind just us paying you a little bit of moolah and we'll rank within 24 hours using your site instead, because it's got more power, right? And basically the host site doesn't really check the website, doesn't create it, etc. You create the content, get it posted on their site, bing bang bosh, you're off to the races. I'll come on to the problems of that in a minute. Now let's talk about some examples of this, right? So Google have also said in their Search Central website that site reputation abuse is when third-party pages are published with little or no first-party oversight or involvement, right? So let's say you've got a website, massive DR, it's ranking for everything, and you're like, mate, if you pay me $1,000, I'll host your content. I'm not going to edit it, I'm not going to change anything, you put whatever you want inside there, right? So you have no involvement in the content creation, then you post it, it starts ranking, happy days. So Google have actually given some examples of what site reputation abuse could be. So for example, like an educational site hosting a page about reviews of payday loans, or a medical site hosting a third-party page about best casinos, a movie review site hosting content about like social media or fortune telling. Basically, something that you have zero expertise in. And they basically say, if you're hosting pages that violate this policy, exclude that third-party content from your indexing. And then they've given some examples of what's not site reputation abuse. We'll come on to that later, but basically like press release websites, syndicated news, user-generated content. This is a very important sentence to come on to. I'll explain why in a minute. And coupons as well. And on May the 1st, you can see that Google Search Central gave a cheeky little reminder that said, as a reminder, the last part of the March 2024 announcements, the new Google search spam policies about site reputation abuse take effect after May the 5th. So I don't think this is going to happen overnight. If you look at the last core update, it literally took like a month to roll out, but you can see that they've already given a pre-warning that this is coming out pretty soon. So let's talk about some predictions, what's going to happen, what's going to go down, why it's a problem, etc. So first of all, why is this a problem? Well, the thing is, right, parasite SEO right now is pretty much too easy. As a very fine, relevant example of this, right? If you go onto Google, which we'll do right now, you pop in site reputation abuse, right? So you're trying to find the update. What you'll find ahead of Google spam policies, which is pretty much what everyone's trying to look for if they type in site reputation abuse, because that's kind of like their term. That's their terminology for parasite SEO, right? You can see that LinkedIn outranks Google, and basically LinkedIn is being used as a kind of parasite SEO platform. Now, obviously, LinkedIn you can post for free. It's not like they're monetizing that, but it's a fine example of how powerful a site reputation can be. I don't know if LinkedIn's going to get hit during this update, but that's one fine example of how parasite SEO is pretty much too easy right now when you can outrank Google's own spam policies. The other reason why this is coming into play, and this is probably the main reason, is that big generic high DR sites are ranking for pretty much everything, right? So these sort of news publications that have a super high DR, they're publishing content that ranks within like 24 hours, but they're not experts, they're not creating great content, the content they're producing is way outside their domain, right? Like we were talking about before, you might have an educational site that publishes some content about payday loans, which means that on Google, that's a poor user experience, and users don't like that. And some good examples of this include keyword swarming, right? So this is a term that came out earlier this week. But basically, for example, you can see in this tweet by Warren Lane Nider that, for example, Forbes is rinsing the keyword puppy checklist. Like, to be fair to them, if that's what's working for them, then I can understand why they would do it. But the problem is that Forbes are kind of like, they can rank for anything and everything, which is smart. Like, they're just taking advantage of their site reputation. But Google doesn't want that anymore. So, for example, if you look at this article by Giselle Navarro, who is the editor of This House Fresh, and this is an independent publishing website that got hit during the core updates and the helpful content updates. I think they lost about 90% of their traffic during the latest updates. They produced this really interesting article that talks about how big publications are using a strategy called swarming to drown out their competitors, aka small indie websites. So, for example, if you look at big publishers like Dotdash, Meredith, or Forbes, etc., that they use a strategy called keyword swarming, right? And basically what they do is they create loads of content targeting the same keywords, and then they can just rank multiple times for that keyword because they have such a high DR and so much authority. Makes sense. Like, that's a smart strategy. I know that inside this article by House Fresh by Giselle says, I don't want to turn this into a personal crusade, because it's not. If that's what's making the money, of course they're going to rinse it, right? But that can't continue, because if big generic high DR sites are ranking for everything, then there's going to be a poor user experience. Bear in mind, like, for example, even if you look at Google, at groups.google.com, and people have been creating content on there with Parasite SEO, I don't want to click on that. I can't click on that keyword list, right? Because it's super dodgy. There's crazy stuff on there I can't show on YouTube. But sites like this are getting abused. And this is a massive shortcut right now, because, for example, if you're an expert, say you're a vet, and you have a DR website, probably a very high chance you're not going to rank. But if you publish that same content on an authority site, you can potentially rank within 24 hours. Like, this happens every single day. And there's a lot of big money in this, because big publications can charge like $1,000 per post. They rank, they get traffic, works every time. The big publication makes money. Sometimes it's not even the publication, it's actually the author of the article that's taking money on the side. And then the third party can rank way quicker than if they're just creating content on their own site. Now, the other issue with this, that, for example, if you look at Google's market share in the US, as you can see right here, so this was updated April 2024, as you can see, Google's market share is lower than it's been since 2009. And Bing's market share, a competitor search engine, has the highest market share it's ever had since 2009. So people kind of voting with what sort of search engine they're using. Obviously, Bing have released a bunch of new features and pushed their search engine more than ever, but that just gives you an idea of how serious this is. Because, like, for example, even if Google loses like 1% market share, if that continues every single month, that's a serious problem for them. It's going to cost them serious money. And so I can see why they're doing something about this, because Parasite SEO is overpowered. Like, Google's getting outranked by LinkedIn, for example, and generic publications can rank for pretty much every keyword. They just publish content around it and rank. So let's talk about some of the predictions that are going to happen right after May the 5th, right? So number one is very vague. If you actually read the guidelines, very vague in terms of what could happen and what couldn't happen. But here's my predictions. I could be totally wrong, but I would say, first of all, if you look at Systrix's updates since the Google Core update, so who's been the biggest winners and losers since the Google Core update on March 5th, you can see that websites that have been notorious for this sort of stuff, for Parasite SEO, for example, like Outlook India, have lost 50% of their traffic, right? So they've taken some big hits right there just in the space of a month or two. And I can imagine that more claps are coming for these sites, right? So if you look at Outlook India's traffic over time on ClickSo, by the way, if you want to get a discount on ClickSo, use the coupon code Goldie, you'll save 15%. Links inside the comments and description if you want access to that. But you can see that Outlook India's traffic over time is dropping massively. They got hit by the HCU last year. They got hit by the core update recently. I can imagine that's going to continue after the site reputation abuse update. And also, Google have already confirmed via the Google Search Liaison Twitter account. So Lily Ray asked, not sure if you're able to answer this. Can you share whether the site reputation abuse component of Google's new spam updates will be enforced via manual actions or algorithmically, right? And Google Search Liaison have said both. Full stop. Some big words coming from Google Search Liaison. What does that mean? That means that some sites are going to receive a manual action penalty inside the Google Search Console, and some sites rinsing this will get hit algorithmically. Now, if you look at the last core update, you'll see that on day one, there was a bunch of manual actions, and then after that, the algorithmic updates came along as well. But basically, this is going to be massive because some of these sites that are rinsing their site reputation to rank, as we've talked about, are number one, making a lot of money. Some of them are making hundreds of millions of dollars, but additionally, they get millions and millions of traffic. So the impact of this could be absolutely massive. The other thing that I can see happening, right, is that partnerships actually get hit, right? So this is a very popular model of monetizing as an SEO. So a lot of SEOs, they partner with high DR sites, high domain rating sites, and pretty much everything that you can publish on these high DR sites can rank for review-related keywords. And then when these sites start ranking, you split the profits, maybe 50-50, something like that. And then a lot of SEOs just rinse tons of AI content, targeting everything, and split the profits. And so I can imagine that business model will get hit, and there'll be some algorithmic and manual action penalties along the way for that too. The thing that I would say is I can't see the end of this, so I can't see Parasite SEO just not working anymore. I just think that a lot of publications, especially because they've got so much to lose from this, will probably think twice about doing it. Other things that we've seen, and I can imagine this is going to happen more and more, is that some sites, for example like Forbes, have blocked their entire coupon directory before Google enforces the site reputation abuse policy. So for example, Google de-indexed and blocked their coupon directory on the website that was probably making them a lot of money because they can see this update coming along and penalizing that sort of stuff. Now, the other thing that's been announced is that Google have this sort of spam reporting tool. I don't know how effective it is, but what you can see is that Google have said they will be updating their tool after the policy gets released, which means that sites can be reported for site reputation abuse. So far, we have covered the overview and what the site reputation abuse policy means. We've covered why it's happening, some of the biggest problems about this, and how independent sites are just getting smashed and don't really have much chance of ranking if they're swarmed by massive high DR sites. We've also talked about some of the biggest predictions right here. I want to show you some examples that might get hit. So this is a tweet by Malt, as you can see right here, and he's basically loaded up his SEO dashboard. I like this, to look at who might get hit during the next update, right? So you can see, for example, all these coupon directories and discount code sites right here that might get hit during the update. You got the Telegraph listed there. Who else? Independent.co.uk, Mirror.co.uk. These are all sites that are predicted to take a hit after the update. There's going to be a lot of drama. Like, these are massive sites getting a lot of traffic. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Now, one thing that people don't really talk about is the winners. So who's going to win from this update? I say there's going to be two types, right? So if you look at Google site reputation policy, and I'll pull this up, Google said that examples that are not considered site reputation abuse include sites designed to allow user-generated content, such as forum websites or comment sections. Who would that include? That would probably include, I would imagine, Reddit and Quora, and potentially YouTube as well. Now, if you look at these sites during the updates, during the core update and the helpful content update, they've blown up in terms of traffic. I can imagine that if some of these big publications take a hit, then Quora is going to swallow up that traffic. The other thing that I would say is, like, smaller publications that are not in a negative ranking state and weren't hit by the core update or the helpful content update potentially could get more traffic. Now, I still think sites like Reddit potentially are going to get prioritized. Now, this is just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. These are predictions, and obviously these updates are very unpredictable, but I can imagine that Reddit and Quora will probably take most of the traffic, and then potentially some smaller publications that are already flying after the core update will start winning. As an example of this, you got websites like cakesbymk.com, not massive authority sites, but they are popping off after the core update, especially as they built more backlinks to the site. And you can see that the traffic is just going up really nicely after the helpful content update and the core update. Very positive ranking state. I can imagine that they just get even more traffic after the site reputation abuse update too. So, thanks so much for watching. We've talked about what the site reputation abuse update means, why it's happening, some of my biggest predictions for this, and some of the biggest winners of the update too. So, thanks so much for watching. If you want to book in a free SEO strategy session about how to get more leads, traffic, and sales to your website, feel free to book that in. You'll get an SEO domination plan. You'll discover the secrets of link building. We'll answer any questions that you have, and you can book in a free SEO strategy session. Link is inside the comments and description. If you want to get access to the SEO boardroom, it's popping off right there. I'm sharing some outrageous stuff in there. For example, here's an experiment where I actually ranked from 0 to 5,000 traffic in 24 hours. And I talk about the process and what worked for me, plus how to replicate it. You can get that in the SEOboardroom.com. And I also have links to a free SEO course, links inside the comments and description. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it as always. Bye-bye.